He stood frozen in the middle of the grocery store, because the woman bagging fruit was the face he'd been dreaming of for 20 years. It started like an ordinary Tuesday. Claire was stocking pears at the local grocery store, same as she had for the past 6 years. Her uniform smelled like citrus and hand sanitizer, her shoes worn thin from long shifts. She worked quietly, never caused a fuss, and kept to herself, except when she looked at children. That's when her eyes always lingered, a little longer, a little sadder. 15 miles away, a social worker named Tara was driving a young man named Micah to a job interview. Micah was quiet, thoughtful, and carried a leather journal wherever he went. At 22, he was aging out of the group home system, a product of more paperwork than parenting. He had no last name he trusted, no birthday that felt real. Just a single blurry memory he could never shake. A woman's face, crying out his name in a storm of glass and metal. He never told anyone, not in full. Not until last week, when Tara asked him why he drew the same woman in his sketchpad over and over again. He said, "I don't know her name, but I remember her voice. She was screaming, 'That's my son!' right before everything went black." Now, on this ordinary Tuesday, Tara made an unexpected stop. "Let's grab some snacks," she said. "You need something before your interview." Micah followed her into the grocery store, notebook in hand, eyes scanning the aisles, until he saw her. Over by the fruit stand, tying a plastic bag, hands shaking slightly from years of wear, was the face. The face from his dreams. He stopped. Everything else blurred out. The noise, the lights, the beeping registers. And in a voice barely above a breath, he whispered, "That's my mom." Tara turned, confused by the tremble in his voice. "What did you say?" Micah didn't answer. He was already walking, slowly, like his legs might give out. The woman was talking to a customer, her head down. But it was her. The same eyes, the same shape of her mouth when she focused. His hands started to shake. Claire looked up just as he reached the edge of her station. Their eyes met. She froze. The bag of apples slipped from her hands and thudded against the floor. For a moment, they just stared. No one moved. The sound of the store kept going. Checkout scanners, carts rolling by, someone asking about bananas. But in that moment, everything stopped for them. Micah's voice cracked. "Do you know me?" Claire covered her mouth, her eyes wide and wet. No, it can't be." She stepped closer, fingers trembling as she reached toward his face. "Micah?" she whispered, like she didn't believe her own voice. He nodded barely. I think so." She burst into tears before she could say another word. Customers turned, a few employees looked over, but Claire didn't care. She wrapped her arms around him and held him like she'd been holding her breath for 20 years. Tara stood nearby, stunned. She had never seen Micah cry, not once. But now he was sobbing like a child into the chest of a woman who held him like he was never gone. Claire kept whispering his name over and over, like she was trying to memorize it again. Micah finally pulled back and asked the question that had haunted him his whole life. "Why didn't you come for me?" Claire stepped back, shaking. "They told me you died, that the crash... They said your body wasn't found." Micah looked down, eyes burning. "They told me I didn't have a family." Claire's knees buckled, and she leaned on the fruit stand to stay upright. "I searched hospitals. I posted flyers. I buried an empty box because they wouldn't even let me see. I never stopped dreaming about you." And then she looked up, voice stronger now. "I knew you were alive, somewhere. I felt it." Micah wiped his face, trying to make sense of it all. "Why now?" Claire gave a weak laugh through her tears. I ask myself that every day. Why not yesterday? Why not sooner? But you're here now, and I'm not letting you disappear again. The manager came rushing over, asking if everything was all right, but Claire just waved him off, holding tightly to Micah's hand. I need a break, she said, her voice unsteady. A long one. Tara stepped in quietly, offering Claire a place to sit in the small cafe corner of the store. Claire's hands didn't stop shaking as she stared at her grown son, the boy she never got to raise, now a man with pain in his eyes and questions in his heart. Micah sat across from her, silent. Then he finally asked, "Do you remember the crash?" Claire nodded slowly. It was raining. We were singing to the radio. You were in the back seat, holding your stuffed tiger. A truck ran a red light. That's all I saw. When I woke up in the hospital, they said the back of the car was crushed, that no child was found. They took me to a shelter, Micah said quietly. I was too young to tell them who I was. I kept saying, "Mama," but they said I was confused, that maybe I imagined it all. Claire's hands covered her face. You didn't imagine me, baby. I was real. I am real. He looked at her, his voice barely holding together. I used to wake up thinking your face was just a dream. And I woke up every day hoping yours wasn't, she whispered. There was a long silence. Neither of them knew how to fill the space between 20 lost years. But then Claire reached into her pocket and pulled out a tiny, folded photo. It was worn and faded, the edges nearly falling apart. She unfolded it carefully and slid it across the table. It was a picture of Micah, age 2, wearing overalls and sitting on a blanket in the park, grinning with sticky hands and a juice box in his lap. I've carried this every day since the crash, she said. Even when people told me to move on, I couldn't. You were never gone to me. Micah stared at the photo, his chest rising and falling like something deep inside was being unlocked. Slowly, he pulled his own notebook from his backpack, the one he never went anywhere without. And inside the back cover, paper-clipped and worn, was his copy of that same photo. They looked at each other in disbelief. Same photo, same pose, same impossible thread between them. Claire started crying again. But this time, so did Micah. Because sometimes love doesn't forget. Even when the world does. They left the store together, walking slower than usual. Not because of age or exhaustion, but because they didn't want the moment to end. Tara followed a few steps behind, wiping her eyes. She didn't need to ask what came next. She just knew she was witnessing something rare. The repair of a bond time tried to erase. Claire brought Micah to her tiny apartment, still filled with reminders of a son no one believed existed. A toy box she never had the heart to throw out. Drawings he made as a toddler, still pinned to a board above her kitchen table. A birthday candle she bought every year but never lit. They sat on the couch, hours slipping by as they told each other everything. The good, the bad, the lonely. Claire spoke of silent holidays and searching faces in every crowd. Micah spoke of being passed from home to home, never trusting anyone long enough to stay. But under all the pain, there was something else. Familiar laughter, shared habits. They even liked the same type of cereal. At one point, Claire stood and walked to a locked drawer. She pulled out a small box and opened it carefully. Inside was a bracelet made of blue and white beads, old and faded. You made this at daycare, she said, placing it in his hand. I wore it until the day they said you were gone. Micah closed his fist around it, blinking hard. I made one for you too. I don't have it anymore, but I remember the colors. She smiled. It was red and yellow. You said it was the sun and ketchup. He laughed through tears. Sounds like me. As evening fell, Claire warmed up leftover soup, and they ate at the same table she once cried over alone. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. Before he left, Claire hesitated at the door. "You'll come back tomorrow?" Micah nodded. "I'll come back every day, if that's okay." She reached up, brushing his hair with her fingers like she did when he was small. "It's more than okay," she whispered. "It's everything I ever prayed for." He hugged her again, tighter this time, and as he walked out into the night, he turned back one last time. "Mom," he said, testing the word on his tongue like it was a song he almost forgot. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, baby? I think I finally found where I belong."